muscles today. So we're going to start in standing, and what I want you to do is just to kind of notice yourself in space. And this is what we want to do with our clients, just to kind of feel their foot position. Now when you're standing, ideally we want our feet facing front as much as they can. If you're really turned out, then maybe just come a little bit in from there, so that you're standing right underneath your hips. And I just want you to close your eyes and feel the weight through your feet, and let yourself rock back and forth. So feel the heels, and then feel the toes. And just do that a few times, and then we're going to rock a little bit side to side. So when you find the middle point, feeling your big toe, little toe, heel, I want you to rock right to left, or left to right. Good. Just feel that sense of weight going to kind of the outer edge of the foot, maybe feeling your inner heel as you go from side to side, and then around the outer heel and outer foot, and then see if you can settle relatively in the middle. Good. Now we're going to think about space in all our joints. So where joints meet each other, we want to think about space between them so that we kind of get a little bit taller from feet to head. So think about space in your ankles as if your shins are lifting off of your feet. Good. And we know that maybe some of you have this tendency to hyperextend their knees, which is the knees going back. So we want to think about our thighs lifting up, away from our shins. And if we keep our weight in our heels more, that's going to take some of the pressure out of the knees. Good. Same thing at the hips. So feel like your pelvis, which we haven't talked about, is this lovely little ball that sits on top of your legs. Okay, so we're going to think about that ball of the pelvis lifting off and almost floating off of your leg bones. And then think up your spine all the way up to the head. And I might mention how many vertebrae are in the spine, educate them a little bit on lumbar, thoracic, cervical, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to think about all the spaces between all our vertebrae, the discs, where the discs are, and just floating ourselves up until we get to the head, and there's this feeling of this head lifting up. Do you feel a little bit taller?
Absolutely.
Amazing. So while you're here with this lovely space, we're going to talk about our breathing. So I want you to focus on breathing in through your nose. And see if you can breathe out through your mouth. Good. Now I might put a ball here, and this is quite nice, and I'm sure you've done this before, where we can focus our breath into one lung at a time. So see if you can send your breath into that ball. We want to send our breath into the side and the back of the ribs as much as we can. Or you might use the little Franklin ball instead to kind of facilitate that. We're going to notice if there's a difference in size. So do one more of those, in through the nose, out through the mouth. It's like we're filling our lung like it's a big balloon. And then we'll go to the other side, maybe feel how that feels.
I've done it with a TheraBand.
Yes.
And I cross the TheraBand
Yes.
to keep it in, and
Brill.
you can get that little sense of bit of tension into the band.
Absolutely. Yep, so while you're doing that one, so you can also have your band around here. I tend to go like this with the fists.
That's it.
Yeah.
I usually cross my nose up and keep my arms in, but yeah.
Yeah, and then they can go inhale, feel your hands separating a little bit, and then exhale, bring the hands together. Yeah, so any feedback they have to focus around the ribs, fantastic. Okay, so just one more on that side. Good, so we want to feel like the lungs and the rib cage are really expanding out to the side when we breathe in. Good, excellent. Okay, we're going to make our way down onto the mat. How'd that feel? Good, lovely. So breathing is a little bit different when we lie on our backs. Okay, so when we're lying down, we're going to have our knees bent, and good, and nice and comfortable there. So just notice yourself in space. So notice how your head maybe meets the ground. If you need a head block, yes, you probably do need a head block. So if the head is falling back, we want to make sure we're blocking up the head. And just maybe notice as you come down to your shoulder blades. Do they feel even in space? Do they feel like one is higher than the other? Do they feel pretty level?
I always feel at the start of a session, personally myself, and I've noticed this more when I've been doing this other courses, my right side feels heavier than my left.
Yeah. So
generally.
Yes, in
From
general.
a height,
Totally.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is just an awareness of where they are. They might not even know what their shoulder blades are, but can you sense, Okay, so we've got one side heavier than the other. And what about as we come down kind of to our lower ribs, can you sense both sides touching? Do you feel them touching at all?
Not at the moment. No.
Okay.
I could probably get my fingers through that.
Yes,
It
okay, so
shows
maybe,
that I'm a little bit
yes,
tight in that. I've
elevated.
been walking today, so I'm probably quite
a little bit tight,
Yeah,
okay?
I'm on hills, so.
So this gives you some awareness of where people are already.
Yeah. Like a
And-
rest assess type thing.
Yeah, and then you can go, well, maybe they need the ball because the ribs are a little bit high. I might invert them a little bit to do their pelvis stuff.
Oh yeah, because if you do that, that's going to lower the ribs down.
Yeah. Yeah. And then come to the pelvis, so pelvic bowl, maybe notice the back, the heavy parts of your pelvis, or maybe even the back of your bum. Does one feel heavier than the other? You're just kind of
Then
noticing.
right side feels
Right
heavier than the left.
So we want to make sure we do some rotational stuff in upper body and lower body. And then, yeah, coming down to the feet. So we might be slightly skew width, and we're going to do some things that are going to help us find some balance. So because you're a little bit with your ribs up, I'm going to give you the ball today, but you don't have to do the ball. So anything for pelvis. You can use ball, you can use cushion, you can use the Franklin balls, you can use nothing. Yeah, depending on what you see. And you might even go, I'm going to try you with the ball, but I'm going to keep you flat or whatever, if you kind of notice their posture. And I do the posture stuff so I can kind of notice as I'm walking around, and I keep their eyes closed and I make them do that little standing posture so I can walk around and look at their posture before they come down on the floor, so I get a little idea, oh, they've got wonky shoulders or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, so just settle yourself on the ball, and if you need to deflate it a little bit because it's too high for someone, or if they feel it's uncomfortable, just give them the cushion. Okay, so what we're going to focus on is our pelvis, and I usually have my pelvis out, my bone is in the other room.
Right.
Okay, so I can kind of tell them where the sacrum is and that we've got two halves. And the bowl can be visualized like a bowl, so we're going to imagine that there's liquid in the bowl, as you said, and we're going to just gently pour that liquid upwards towards the rib cage. And then we're going to imagine that water or soup or chocolate in the bowl rolling all the way down towards our feet. So we're just rolling over the ball. Now we might not go too far with the ball down, but we can sense that the ball or the bowl wants to move more towards the rib cage. That's great. So we're going to try and do this with our breathing. So if you pause in the middle, take a little breath in and guide your water, your liquid down towards your feet. Maybe there's a little pull on your feet. And then as you roll the water up, you're going to exhale. And you're going to feel the feet maybe pushing away. So this is good when they're on the mat to connect a little bit to the feet. Yeah, so a little bit of pulling the feet to the seat as we breathe in. Okay, we're sending all the breath down the body. Excellent. And then when you breathe out, the pelvis is going to roll back up. Nice. And we want to keep everything really calm. We don't want to do too much tension. So see if you can just roll the pelvis really quietly. So not putting too much contraction in the legs. Good. Or even in the upper body, sometimes we try too hard to do these movements with the upper body. And as you know, someone new doesn't really know their pelvis, doesn't know how to pelvic tilt. Yeah, guide them with your hands.
They're not paying attention to their upper body, they just
Start tensing up.
up.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you find in your posture when you're walking around that someone's very flat in their back, then you might not want a cushion so that they can go into that little bit more anterior tilt. They can go through. If you see that they're more kind of lordotic, anterior tilt, then you might want to do more of the ball and the cushion. Yeah? Okay? So then come to where your water is kind of calm. Now there's a couple of places that feels neutral. On the ball, it's kind of like these little bones in the front are pointing up to the ceiling. You just feel a little bit more calm on the ball, feels more restful. Yeah? We're not being pulled up or down, we're kind of in the middle. If we were on the mat, we would feel the back of the pelvis heavy. Okay, how does that feel?
Yeah, that's fine.
Lovely. Now we're going to rock right to left. So we're going to think of that liquid pouring over to one side and then come back to the middle. It's like a little spirit level. And we're going to turn that bubble a little bit one side to the other. Good. And think more of it melting down rather than trying to push it up with the other side. Yeah. Good. So really calmly. And as we're rocking and rolling, we want to feel a little bit like the leg on that side is dropping into the hair. Nice. Okay, so the leg on the side you're dropping over to is dropping into the hip. Good, there's almost a little feeling of the opposite leg going out of your hip. Yes. So I always kind of think of puppet strings, and one puppet string is kind of pulling your knee forward, the other puppet string is dropping the leg down into your pelvis. Good. So you might notice that one side feels easier than the other.
Definitely. My right side feels easier.
Yeah. Good. So just notice if anything's kind of gripping or tensing. We want to do it really, really calm. And then I would do some circles, so just rolling around and just feeling the pelvis kind of go in a circular pattern. So we might talk about the clock face a little bit. So as you're going up and down, that's 12 and 6 on your clock. When you go side to side, it's 3 and 9, and then we go around the clock or around the compass. North, east, south, west. Yeah. Nice.
That side just feels judgy.
Yes, we're looking for it to be really smooth. Yeah, everyone struggles with this the first time, and then you do a few the other way. So we really find where this central point is. So after you've done that a few times, then we're going to come back to the middle. Nice. And now we're going to try and stabilize the pelvis in the middle. So we mobilize to find neutral. We stabilize now to then move the legs of the arms. Okay, so we're going to try and keep that weight in the middle of our clock, the middle of our bowl, and we're just going to pick up lightly one foot at a time. So we're just going to kind of march one foot, and not even that high off the ground. We're just going to do a little tiny lift off the floor, like just there, and then come down. So I literally want you to feel like a little bit of weight on one foot, and then a little release of the other foot. Yeah, and even keeping the foot really relaxed, so you kind of feel that the action is happening more from your hip rather than the foot kind of peeling. Yeah, and sometimes my analogy is you've got a big welly boot on, and you're sticking that welly boot into the mud, and then you're pulling your foot out of the other welly boot. So one foot is heavy and sticky, and the other foot is light and floaty. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're noticing whether the pelvis is staying balanced in the middle of our clock face or in the middle of the bowl. Is it wibbly wobbling a little bit? How does it feel?
Tiny bit.
Yeah?
Yeah, more again, one side than the other.
Yeah. So take the time to exhale. We find more stability when we breathe out. So where we can kind of guide that breath to our pelvis as we're exhaling. Yes, and time it to when we're going to float that foot out of our belly boot. Nice. Oh, that's much better. And this might not be week 1, but week 2 might be, remember the marches we did? Now we're going to start to do both legs coming up to tabletop, or if you feel they're very stable, you might go, okay, let's challenge it a little bit more. Let's bring the one leg up. Let's take a big exhale to bring all the weight into our pelvis and see if we can scoop the other leg up. Really light. Good. Yeah, nice. And then inhale to stay. See if you can keep the weight in the center of your pelvis as the first leg comes back down. Good. So we're kind of keeping the center of gravity right down in the middle of your pelvis, and then the other side.
So no levers out, just keeping everything as centered.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that okay? So if you feel like they're ready, fabulous. Yeah. If you don't feel like they're ready, just do the marches.
Just do marches.
And maybe even do a leg drop if you want to do those. Any stability ones. Yeah. Okay? Take the ball away. We're going to look at your shoulders for a moment. So for the purpose of this, I would do the band on the floor. Okay. So if you sit yourself up, I'm going to lie your band here, and sometimes I'll get them just to be aware that your shoulder blades are the size of your hand. So I don't know if you feel, most people think their shoulder blades are just up here.
Yeah, scapula's a little down.
Yeah, so they're the size of your hand, and we're going to have the band kind of around there. The band's going to come underneath your armpits, and then we're going to stretch the arms up. We don't want too much tension in the band, just enough that you can kind of feel a little stretch. Yeah? Okay. So I want you to imagine the shoulder blades moving apart on the mat, and that's going to bring the band up and stretch it a little bit. So as the shoulder blades slide away from each other. Good. And then just let them rest back on the mat. Good. So just do that. See if you feel you want to inhale as they come apart, or whether you want to exhale. So what feels more natural for you?
For me, I like to exhale because I feel like they're going to melt nice and wide.
Okay. Nice. So I'm the opposite. I like to inhale because it brings my breath into the back of me. And I really struggle to flex and bring my ribs back. So for me, an inhale really, really works for me for protraction.
Okay.
Yeah?
So a little.
Yeah, feel.
So.
Yeah, so do the reverse. So inhale as you're going into the protraction.
Oh, so yeah, I was inhaling for protraction.
Now you're exhaling for protraction.
Exhale to melt.
That's retraction.
Sorry, yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah?
Exhale.
So I
inhale
want
to
you
lift.
Yes. So you were exhaling to
Yeah.
lift. Yeah, so this time try and inhale to spread them apart. Yeah. No. So I want you to inhale into the side and move your shoulder blades apart when you breathe in. So this way. And then exhale to come back to the mat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's how I prefer to do mine.
Yeah. Inhale as you protract. And then exhale as you retract. Good. So just being aware of the rib cage and what it's doing and making sure that it's not coming from the arm. So sometimes I'll say we can do this action kind of from the arm, or we can really do it from the shoulder blade, which is a much softer feeling. Yeah. Sometimes I'll sit them up to do it so they can kind of feel it. Yeah. Nice. In. Yeah. And out. Good. And then I don't give too much retraction unless I feel like they need it. Because most people.
That's the retraction, isn't it?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they'll go up to the top.
Yeah. And they over squeeze. So I say, you know, if they need it, I would probably do it more sitting. So if you sit up now, and obviously sit them on whatever they want. Okay. And then reach your arms out in front of you. Good, and then we'll do that little protraction again. So let's try it with the inhale again. So we're going to slide the shoulder blades apart. We're really breathing into that side body. And then we're going to go back a little bit further towards the band. Nice. So inhale as they come kind of through neutral and beyond. And then exhale as you come back through neutral and a little bit beyond that way. Yeah, good. So we want to feel like we're moving across the back of us. And now we want to feel like we're moving across the front of us to bring the shoulder blades back. So we move across the back of us to bring the shoulder blades apart. And then we move across the front of us to bring the shoulder blades back. And let's do the opposites. So one is going into lovely protraction. One slides away from the center. And the other shoulder blade is coming towards the center. And this leads us into a little bit of rotation. Yeah. So this can kind of nicely lead us into spine twisting. You can either do this on the floor or do it in sitting. Obviously prop them up as needed. But I really like the band here because then we can get a really nice.
Good feedback.
Very good. And really functional to do the rotation stuff while they're learning the shoulders. Okay, that's lovely. And then let's lead us into an all fours position.
With the band?
Nope, we're just going to go free form. So if anyone struggles with wrist, I'll use the arc barrels or a roller under their hands.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there's arc barrels in the other room, so you
Yeah.
can put their hands kind of over the arc barrels and then they've got a little bit more angle on the wrists.
Okay, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Or using a roller, your wrists are okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So if they did have any wrist issues, I would just put them kind of that way.
Yeah, it's almost
So
like
there's
a flat foot bar, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got a bit more of an angle.
So what they tend to do is kind of do the exact same thing with the wrist, but I'm like, no, you've got to become almost more out so that the wrists are more neutral.
Yeah. I think the worry is that it's going to roll away, isn't it?
Yes. So use the roller or not, and we're just going to do a little articulation, which means movement of the spine. Okay, so have you done a cat stretch before? I'm just saying this as if you're a new person, so maybe you've done it in yoga. So what we want to feel is that each vertebrae kind of opens at the front, but also opens at the back. Okay, now that's a weird concept. So what I want you to start with is just thinking of your tail going down, and that starts to move our low back and the bottom of our spine here into a more rounded position. So we're opening up all the discs. Here, we're going to keep rounding and making this lovely arc that goes all the way to the back of the head. Excellent. So now our head and our tail are kind of moving away from each other. And if you can get a little sense of lift through the front of you, like your navel is drawn up, how does that feel?
Yeah. Good.
Nice. Okay, now instead of sagging through here, we're going to think of the two ends moving away from the center. So you're going to think of your tail starting to reach behind you and up. Good, and at the same time your upper body is reaching away from the center and up. Nice, so your ribs are going to go forward and up, your chest is going to look forward, and now your tail and your head are now reaching out into this other curve. Lovely. And I might not touch their bits right away.
I take my jump rope, it would be a lot easier.
Okay. So I try and get a sense that they're moving away from the center, not dropping the center.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because
Yeah,
otherwise they go...
Keep that middle bit in.
And almost...
extend from
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
So this is our flexion of the spine. So we're going to go again and send our tail down, open up all the vertebrae at the back of us. Excellent. So creating this curve, this lift through the front, and then feeling like we go through the bottom end, moving away from the center, and the top end, moving away from the center. Lovely. And we go into the extension of the spine. Excellent. So we don't want to feel like we're sagging. Excellent. And then go again. So we're going to start to educate a little bit the deep core, maybe, that the inner layer is our transverse muscles. So we want to feel like they're hugging gently into your body. I might even do the 100% that we did last time, the 100% contraction. Okay, keep going into that extension, and then we're going to try and find more of a neutral line. Okay, so you can keep the hands on the roller if you like. So we want to feel, or you can go down. Yeah. So we want to feel now, if we imagine the top of the head reaching right out in front of you and the back of your pelvis reaching behind you, so we're in a nice straight line. Sometimes I'll use the roller for feedback. So you want to feel like the back of the head, the middle of the shoulder blades, and the base of the spine, pelvis should all be in line. There should be just a little natural curve there. Lovely. Now, if you can stay there and breathe in, when you breathe out, I want you to feel a little lift of your abdomen wall. And nothing changes, but we just feel like it's hugging in. And then see if you can let it go gently without changing your spine. Good. So we're just going to wake up this deep abdominal muscle. So on the next exhale, you're going to lift and retract the wall of your belly up. Good. Send your tail up a little bit more. Tail up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Yeah. Good. Okay. And then elongate along that roller. Nice. You okay in your wrists?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So do we feel that little lift? Now we can do 100% lift. We can like really activate that core. And more often than not, it rounds our spine when we activate too much.
Yeah, because I'm going to want to do this.
Yes, and that's okay. We can do that. So if you want to really feel like go 100% pull in and curve the spine, really draw everything in. Good. Feels uncomfortable, right? Let that go by half. You start to straighten the spine a little bit more. Let that go by half again. We find that elongation. And now we've got that low level support still. Let it go. Good. And then feel just that lift at 25%. Good. Can you hold that as you continue to breathe? And we're going to start to march our hands a little bit, like we did with our feet. So see if you can keep that little 25. Excellent. We're just going to march the hands a little bit. You might notice some little shifting in your knees, and that's okay. We should feel a little bit of opposition. So whichever hand is still on the floor, the opposite knee stays really heavy. Good. Keep the elongation through your spine. Good. Do you still feel that inner core?
Yes.
Good. Doing well. 2. And 1. And then release off your wrists. Very nice.
Yeah. Sometimes you do shoulder taps, but you know what? Shoulder taps are easier than that.
Yeah.
So much easier.
Yeah. Just that little. And what I like people to feel is that opposition.
Yes.
Because in the hand and the knee.
And when I do shoulder taps, I always say you most likely are going to feel the opposite knee bearing down to whichever hand is left on the floor. And they go, oh yes.
Yeah.
So for some, if they don't want to do like like little leg pulls like that,
Yeah.
I always say if it's too much in core, shoulder taps, and so
Totally.
I always have people doing shoulder taps rather than
Totally.
ankles. So.
Yeah, amazing. Then I might get them to sit and do like a little basic half roll back if they feel okay.
Okay.
So if you come to the
with thigh support.
yes,
Yeah. Brilliant.
and I might even put the ball behind if
Yeah,
I
I've
know.
done that as well.
Yeah, so we're just going to do a little half roll back, leading us into what will be kind of roll downs. I'm just going to move it a little bit away. So remember that little pelvic clock that we did? So we're going to roll the pelvis away from our legs as if the water is spilling backwards and kind of up our body. Excellent. And then sit back up onto your sit bones. A little pull in the hands is fine. Excellent. But we almost want to fall the pelvis away from the legs rather than over recruiting. We're kind of giving our back body to the ball. Good. Or to the space behind. And I want you to think when you roll back of letting the front of the hips let go.
Yes.
Release the heels. I often say if you relax your jaw.
Good tips about hip grip.
Release into your hips.
Yeah.
Try and connect to your feet more. So feel like your feet are pushing away the mat because sometimes people don't connect to the back of their legs.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Try it with the roller under your feet and feel the roller pushing away when you go to roll back. So feel like the roller is pushing away. Does that help?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit? Yeah.
I mean, it's not me that suffers.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
a lot
really
of people.
common.
I always say, right, we'll do one exercise and then a release of the
I
hips,
think
another exercise and a
they-
release of the hips.
I think they over recruit.
Yeah, I always say, right, take the tension out of your
Yeah.
take tension out of your hips,
Yeah.
focus it, travel it up into your core,
Yeah.
relax through the shoulders.
Yeah.
I also do all between the
Yeah,
knees as well,
yeah.
to
Inner
balance
thighs
the
sometimes
hips.
helps. Yeah.
So I didn't know whether there was any other magical tips.
No, not really. Or using the band. I do find the band around the feet does
Yes,
help.
I've done more backs
Yeah.
like that
Because
before,
they're pushing.
and also because you're lengthening rather
Yes.
than the angle
Yes.
of the hip flexors
Yeah.
there. I find that.
Yeah. And even sometimes I'll allow them to kind of go into a more turned out position and let them release.
Yeah.
As long as I get the feeling of the pelvis
The rock
kind of
off.
rolling. Yes.
Yeah.
And then I would maybe roll them down and back to our backs.
Yeah.
Okay? And then I would do the bridge, but I'm going to do the bent leg bridge and the long leg bridge that I showed you. Her hamstrings were sore the day after.
Absolutely. Oh, I can tell I don't use them enough. Oh.
So I would have the boxes or the balls maybe handy if I was going to do that. Okay, so we're going to work on a bridge, which is a movement for the back of the legs, a connection to the back of the legs. And traditionally it's done here, so we're going to feel what this feels like. So we're going to melt down into our feet, and we're just going to let the bottom come up a little bit. So as you push down into the ground, yeah, with your feet, your hips are going to come into the air, your bum is going to come into the air. Good, and you're going to have a little wiggle, little jello jiggle. Awesome. And then just kind of settle so you really feel your feet are kind of holding you there. You obviously feel your head and shoulders. Yes?
Yeah.
And I'll check that there's no pain as they're doing it. Okay, then to go a little bit higher, we're going to push down a little bit more. Send our thighs and our trunk forward until we feel that we're nice and long and lengthened in the front of the hips. You might spill your water a little bit towards your ribs here. You might even reach your arms into the air if you feel kind of pressure in your neck, shoulders. And then you're going to come down and you're just going to melt your spine along the bend as if you're trying to go a little bit further down the mat. Excellent. Good. And then again. So a couple tricks to make it not so compressive. Okay, is big yoga block underneath one foot and now go into the pattern. So usually if people are twisted, their hamstrings cramp when they go into double bridge, but as soon as you do a lopsided bridge, it becomes more free. And then you can either I like doing this straight down with the hips rather than articulating.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I'll make sure I do straight bridges here.
Yeah, you can do lengthening, I don't mind, especially for people who are a bit rib poppy. Sometimes I do encourage.
It sends the ribs down.
It does. As long as it feels like that it's more soft. And what I do cue, I'll cue it this way just so you can kind of hear. So keep on the block for a second and then go up. So pressing. Good. So what I would say is actually let the front of your spine come down. So rather than thinking of the back of the spine, actually laying the front of the spine down feels very different than trying to push the back of the spine
Oh,
down.
do you know what? Ever since I did a class with you years ago when you told about when you spoke about the sigh,
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
It is a sigh.
I said relax. I said stop trying to push each vertebrae onto the mat because your stomach's going to go like that. So I always say, go for a sigh.
Love it, love it. Okay, so block under, you can do articulation, or we can do our long leg bridge, which is, we talked about, was more functional. And I'm just going to put a little mat on top for this so it's a bit higher up for you. Okay, so we're going to dorsiflex the ankles. You can also use the big balls, which are really yummy for this. And we've got 6 big balls in there, 8 big balls, I think. So let your pelvis fall back to neutral, so don't tuck it, let it release. Yeah. Get out of that tucking. Okay, so we're going to start in neutral in the center of our pelvic bowl. This might be week 2 stuff, okay? I'm just keeping that in mind. We're going to press into the cushion, the box, the ball. And as you press down with the long legs, we're going to get our hips to come up, just as we did with the bent leg bridge. Lengthen yourself out. Lovely. And if you do hyperextend, we just need a little tiny awareness behind those back of knees.
That's what I kind of worry about. Not worried about, I'm worried about.
Yeah, no, that looks lovely. And then straight back down with your hips.
Really small movement. I mean, I've got a big bum, but it feels like it's a very small movement.
Yeah, but it's powerful.
Really powerful.
Really powerful and much more effective. And 9 times out of 10, if people feel their back in the bent leg bridge, they tend not to in this.
See, I would say I would 100%
I know.
say it was the other way
I know.
around.
I know.
That's why I don't like these. And psychologically, I think my back's gonna go.
No, but you've got more support in your legs. You've got the whole chain of the legs. You're not pulling the hamstrings into a short position. They're in a long position.
Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10
It's tight here.
in your sacrum. Okay.
Around
So
around
when you go into it, make sure it is the back of your legs that are meeting the load, because sometimes we think we're pushing in the back of the legs.
and actually we're diverting it up
Yes.
into here. Fine.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Let's see how that.
Yeah. So really,
Is it that when I'm on the ball, is it just my ankles, or do we go into calves?
it's kind of a little bit calves.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready.
So press and really feel the back of the legs, and then I want a little tiny bit of 12, and I want your ribs connected. Yeah.
Still going down. Better.
It's really lengthening out. You've almost got to feel like your sacrum is moving away from your head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So then it goes into the legs. You might even find higher up is better, because sometimes the lower you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll do this at the edge of the reformer beds.
Okay.
So if they had their mats beside the reform, like in front of the reformer, and then put their feet up on the bed with like the head cushion kind of supporting, or I've got the big cushions, or you can put a mat over or whatever. Yeah?
It's this left knee that kind of really wants to hyperextend. Well, they both do, but this one especially is quite floppy, so I really have to kind of make sure that hamstring goes.
Yep. Good for you. Okay, so we're going to do some side lying. So if you lie on your side, and you can have your arm underneath your head, or you can have a block. When we talked about whatever the block is, if you lie on your side, it should be the same block that you use, whatever you use behind your head should be the one that you use there. You okay with that one?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to do a little book opening. So you might want your bottom arm in front of you. Yes. Lovely. Both arms on top. We're going to do a little spiral for your upper body. So I want you to feel elongated here, and that doesn't mean that I think sometimes we like pop our lower ribs up a little bit too much. So just feel the length through yourself here, and then I want you to lift your top arm up. Lovely. And then I want you to start to roll across your left shoulder. That is your left shoulder, right? Yeah. Okay. And we're going to kind of open our arms out. Good. And we might even find we want to slide the legs up a little bit more, and we want to feel this diagonal pull from the hip to the opposite rib. Good. And then come all the way back with your trunk to return in the arm. I'm going to show you a couple ways to do this. That's one option. Option 2 is hands at your rib cage. Okay, because we're going to guide this bottom rib cage around to initiate the roll. Because it is the bottom rib that initiates that twist. Yes, nice. And I might even keep the hand there so they don't, you know, if they're starting to flail their arm all over the place, just floppy arms. So I really want them to concentrate on that and then roll yourself back, and you can reach the arm back if you want, or you can just keep it there. Option 3, handed head. So I put back of hand at the front of the forehead.
Okay.
Yep, like a salute.
Yep.
And then that keeps the arm kind of relatively stable with the shoulder, and then still feeling that roll across that left arm.
Oh, that feels quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that one. That's
Yep.
feeling right there.
Yay, so I might look at all
Right in
3
the
of those.
centre.
Good. And then rotate the trunk to bring the arm back. Yeah? And then you can kind of see which one is better for what person. Yeah, if they do flailing arms, then you might want to rein it in a little bit.
And ribs, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. You could put the leg on the roller or whatever, do the other side, la la la. Okay, let's sit up. And we're going to do a little bit of side bending, which I'm not a huge fan of. So I like a loaded side bend. But actually what I'm going to do instead is put your legs out in front of you. I might not be in the camera. And maybe face sideways, because this is a groin shot. Okay, so knees bent. Looks a little bit cloudy, but that's okay.
Right.
Okay, so knees bent, feet a little bit more open. Lovely.
Yeah.
We're going to do a little rotation in our hips. This is kind of leading into...
Like a 1990.
Yes. So we're going to go roll and rotate.
Ah, so rotation as well as the
Yep.
roll. Yeah.
Roll and rotate. So what I find is it's a nicer way to get into Z-sit.
Yeah.
Yes, and especially for newbies, if you just kind of sit them into Z-sit.
It can be very uncomfortable.
Yes.
Sometimes I do 1990s at the end. If we've done a lot of hip flexion and stuff,
Yeah.
sometimes to release.
And this feels really nice.
It does. I think
Yeah.
it does.
It's a much nicer spiral, and then what I might do is then send the arm over from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then roll. So they get kind of a spiraling side bend, kind of mermaid with rotation kind
And it's
of
not
feel.
just a lateral stretch, is it? Like
Yes.
a mermaid.
Yes.
It is that spiraling round.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there.
And that's a nice finisher too, isn't it?
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can spiral out, and then what I would probably do is maybe do a little bit of chest lift on the roller, on the ball, on the mat, whatever you feel. Yeah.
I did scarecrows with my class last night, and I asked them. I said, "We're going to do diamond press,
Yeah.
and we're going to do scarecrows." And I
Yeah.
want feedback after 2. Which
Yeah.
one did you feel that mid?
Yeah.
It all said scarecrows. So I was
Love
like,
it.
yes. I
Okay.
imparted wisdom.
Okay, so whatever you want to do on the floor, on the roller, on the ball, whatever you think will serve them best, but we just really want them to get movement in the upper back. Yeah. Good. So we want to kind of move this cage of our upper, and I might teach them that there's 12 thoracic vertebrae and there's 12 ribs. So when we move that upper back, we also move the ribs. Yeah, so feel like the ribs are kind of opening out in the front. Good. And then the ribs are opening at the back of you to come back up. So the top rib. Yes. Good. If you lift your bum up into the air in this position, yes, and then do the same thing, it kind of isolates that upper back a little bit more.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Because sometimes people will bend a little bit in their low back too much. Yes. So you can lift the bum up, or just do it on the floor with a reach of the arm, whatever you want to do for chest lift. Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice because you get a little bit of extension there. So I would probably be partial to ball or roller in
I
teaching.
teaching in my classes. I don't have rollers.
Oh, do you not?
Can't 12 rollers around.
I know, that is
Yeah.
true. Get them in your own.
Well, that's true, but again, they're probably one of the most expensive bits to kind of
It's true.
get, aren't they? Ball and band are 5 each.
On your front, so I'm kind of going out of order. I would probably those 2 and then finish with the little spirally legs at the end,
Yeah,
and then
that's
stand up.
Yeah.
But let's review scarecrow for everyone so we can see what the magic is. So our breaststroke prep, we traditionally have kind of hands under head option, yeah, as just a little kind of halo lift. So lots of cueing for breaststroke, for thoracic. Yeah, first things I would do is let them wiggle a little bit on the mat. Yeah, wiggle the thighs down the mat. I would explain to them probably in kneeling what we're doing here, like a little bit of lift to the breastbone first. So I would go kind of into kneeling and then kind of feel like they've got googly eyes on their breastbone and they're looking up. Imagine they're looking at a skyscraper. Feel the stretch through the front. Now I want you to feel that on your front. So I'd probably do that first. Okay? We're going to do that kind of 100% thing that we did in the all fours. Okay? So let your belly just relapse into the mat. And then take a breath in. And as you breathe out, pull 100% of that core muscle tissue. Good. Let that go by half. Let that go by half again. Elongate up the spine with that. Feel like your head is growing further up the mat and your legs are reaching nice and parallel down the mat. So remember when we said about the cat, that your tail and your head were moving away from the middle? I want you to now feel the upper body moving away from the middle. And we're going to start to lift the chest up a tiny, tiny bit with that 25. The head is going to go for the ride. We're going to lift up into this arc until we maybe start to feel the low back. That was nice, by the way. And then come back down. So that's option one. Option two is arms in W. Lovely. And you might feel maybe a sense of pulling the mat back or pushing the mat forward. We won't do scarecrow yet. And then we still feel that upper body moving away from the center, lifting the chest bone up like you're shining it forward. And we want the shoulder blades to slightly come towards each other a little bit, as if the front of you is opening out. Good? And then come back. Scarecrow makes the upper arms start to rotate into that external rotation, which usually facilitates extension. So when you're ready, exactly, we spiral the arms and that should trigger the chest lifting. Beautiful. It's not a big lift. So we're not looking for mega, we still want that little 25% lift. The ribs go away from the pelvis. Nice. And then release. Or you can do grasshopper, which is the hands nice and close to the body. Yes, and you can play with that through the weeks that you're with people. So maybe if they need the shoulder blades to come more together, that doesn't work for Liz. But
okay, straighten my lower back.
Yeah, totally. But for some people who need that little bit of elevation and need to kind of connect to their shoulder blades a little bit more, this can be quite helpful. As long as you, but not for Liz.
It just makes me want to do that.
Yeah. So after you've done that, then maybe finish the spiral. That's very ambitious, I know.